to record. Well, everyone, welcome. I'm so excited today because we are starting a new segment in the Antonio Laniz Art Podcast. We have the amazing visual artist, Miriam Ximil, and I'm excited to have you today. Miriam, how are you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate this time that you took out of your day to, have me on your podcast. So thank you so much.
Of course, Miriam, I'm so excited because it's always great to talk to people like you who are making your work very socially conscious. And over the years, I've seen and admired your contribution towards artivism, how you're using your work to bring awareness about what's happening. And not only bringing representation, but also providing tools and connections to what people can do against the multiple forces that are attacking us. And I really appreciate you. So let me introduce you for people who are maybe not familiar with your work. I want to say that Miriam is a Raleigh-based visual artist, and her work brings together color, culture, and storytelling in a way that is both very personal and powerful. She has used mixed media, painting, illustration, and recently I am a fan of her zine work, which you can see here. And as I was saying earlier, her work creates work around identity, heritage, and the lived experiences of Hispanic and immigrant communities in North Carolina in the Triangle area. And these stories include Miriam's own stories, which makes me very emotional because every time I see her work, it's always so I connect. I connect to what she has, to the work that she shared a year ago in the Northern Farmers Market when we exhibited together. I wish we could relive or live those times again. So, again, her work feels emotional to me, but also they feel intimate and very expressive. They're really inviting to broader conversations that are happening, specifically about memory, belonging, and immigrant rights. So, Miriam, how are you feeling today?
Very great, actually. I think that, a lot of moments in life, have culminated into this moment, and I'm grateful to have met you and the other artists in our group. Or so yeah, I'm feeling very hopeful, and I think that I like to keep that in my back pocket each day, and it's different all the time, every day. Sometimes it's a little, sometimes it's a lot, sometimes it's like, barely clinging on, but today I'm like hopeful, 100% actually.
Well, I'm,
Yeah.
I'm glad. I'm glad to hear it. One of the reasons that I also invited you was because you are always real in what's happening and you capture that in your work. Tell us how you use your experience and the world around you to not only communicate, but also to educate and, you know, become more calm or more hopeful, which you described.
I like to use my artwork, um, by I guess sometimes I end up collecting other people's stories, and including my own as well. And I like to communicate those stories via like comics, short comics or illustrations. And I think one of my ways is to just make sure that other people's stories have been seen. Other people maybe that feel like they've been neglected or they don't feel seen. Maybe we don't listen, we don't hear their stories in the traditional media like television. Um, in some novels, the traditional media has kind of, especially for the Hispanic and Latino and Indigenous community, they've kind of like boxed us into a certain trope. And I like to use my art to reflect that a lot of the stories that have been told to me, from all types of all walks of life. So that way I can, because I see myself and my artistry as a vessel to communicate those stories. So yeah, that's mostly.
Thank you. Of course. And Miriam, I know that people listening don't know that we had a meeting this week earlier about something else that's coming up in the fall 2026. And one of the main points of that conversation was I'm honestly tired of how the media continues to not only stereotype us, but also fall into this tragedy idea about who we are as Latinx, Latina people in this country. And something that I really like about you is that you have a sense of happiness in your pieces. Why do you choose to paint our communities that way?
Because I think that, well, my artwork is always, when you see it, is going to be very truthful to who I am, you know. Because for a long time, it's not that I chose darkness, but it's that I was in the dark for a long time, maybe even up to my early 20s. I came from a very abusive home, physically and mentally abusive place. And so I was used to kind of seeing the world in such a way that was very, for the most part, hopeless, maybe 90% of the time. But like I say, I always carry that like 10% like hopefulness in me, because that's something that I feel like maybe, I was born in. And all kids are born with that, I think, and over time, maybe sometimes that gets stomped out. So I always kind of felt that that wasn't me. Something in me was telling me like, this is a weird way to live. Maybe other people like to live that way, but maybe not me. And once I started discovering that there was another way to live, I kept kind of grasping onto that and making that hopefulness and happiness bigger and bigger. Like I had to create it again, Whereas when I was a 5 years old, it was there all the time and I was like super happy. And I'm like, how do I get that back? I was like, how do I take that back? Because a lot of people are stealing my joy, and I gotta take it back. So, that's kind of why I have that optimistic point of view in my life, because, in this life, a lot of people, can be so harsh and stuff like that. So I feel like you have to be that, because in these day and ages, in this day and age, being happy and taking back your joy is seen as radical, unfortunately. And I'm just like, well, that's how I'm gonna live. Yeah. So
No, especially how like the systems that we mentioned earlier, the anti-immigrant
yeah.
sentiment, all the immigration attacks, the like you said, trying to squeeze every ounce of joy that we have. It is an act of resistance to show them that we're not, in fact, going to perish like they want us to.
Yes,
Right? That is
exactly. Yeah. Yeah,
their ultimate goal.
that is definitely their ultimate goal. It's a psychological thing that they're operating on, not, because they're trying to take away our opportunities, or, the jobs, the asylum seeking um things and stuff. And so like, and then the last bit is like they just want to just take out our joy, so that way we're always paranoid, always feeling like we don't belong, always feeling like someone's going to tell on us and stuff. And and that's the last thing. And if we let them have it, like they've won. And that's something that I advocate against, is that like, is like, or don't let them take away our joy, because that's the last thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. I really like that. Um, so we talked about your introduction to art, how you use art to talk about how you wanted to see the world differently than how you grew up. And thank you for being very open and honest in that conversation. One of the reasons I really like your work too, Miriam, is that it's not just representational or talks about like your community, yourself, and your life, but also gives people tools to advocate for communities of color. And for people who are not as familiar, I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in a few minutes. But Miriam, introduce your zine to us. What is this about? And what's the importance about education, not just representing?
So my zine is about a little bit about everything, but it definitely delves into uh, living life as an undocumented person and as a DACA recipient as well. And it's about kind of, I guess, it's like a journal as well. So yeah, a little bit of everything about dreams, and it's inspired by movies, a lot of music. But it's for the most part, I kind of wanted, because it has a little bit of activities in it too. I also wanted to tap into the that person, whoever's reading it, into their curiosity, their creativity. Yeah, I wanted to hopefully inspire somebody to start their own zine and start telling their stories, and not to be quiet about uh stuff in their life, because I feel like journaling and any artistic route is a way for us to kind of like decompress. Because I definitely feel like a lot of people, like I was talking about earlier, about the child inside of us and how throughout our life it's stomped out by other adults telling us that, oh, your dream's not going to make you any money. What you're doing is not going to be, nobody cares, whatever. And I want to kind of like tap into that, you know, that little thing that was stomped out and make it big again, because we only have one life, right? And so that's my whole point of the zine, is to just encourage people to do something, and do something outside of the internet. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I want to highlight a couple of activities that you mentioned. The one that I'm really in awe is what you mentioned in your second page called Chinga la Migra, the ICE occupation in the United States, getting familiar with for-profit prisons. So again, when you mention not just represent, but do something about what's happening and bring awareness, I really like how you create one, a context of what's happening, about why people are being attacked right now, and how when people are abducted, they continue to feed this machine that you talk more about here. And I really like how you give a list of ideas in terms of what people can do to stand up or in voice their concerns against these practices. So tell us more
Yeah.
about page two.
Yeah, sure. I wanted to include that page because in my talks with a lot of my peers and family members, and I did have some pushback, but and also some people supporting it. But a lot of it, the one that I was gravitated to was like, well, yeah, we know this, so what else can we do? Like, what can I do? I'm an immigrant too, and there's only so much I can do, or, that kind of sentiment. And I don't like that sentiment. But I understand it because it's a very heavy thing. And growing up, I felt like a lot of the times people introduce all these problems, and you're like, well, what can I do? I'm just an individual. I'm also in debt and all that stuff, and I feel it too. But I want to emphasize the fact that we can all do something, even if you think that it's small. Um, we can all, the power of the individual creates a giant wave of change. That's my philosophy. And I feel like you're not hopeless. It's not hopeless. We can print out flyers. We can, you know what? It can even be something as small as when you talk to somebody and maybe they're like in the middle, or they don't know what's going on, and you tell them a fact about it without being too pushy, because you're talking to, human being, like you got to be personable. And you're like, okay, this is happening. And they're like, okay, well, what can I do? Well, you can donate some stuff if you feel like it, or you could just talk about it. Just talk about it and plant the seed, because sometimes I used to have this feeling of like, well, I'm not gonna teach somebody how to be good. I'm not gonna, it's too much work. And if it's too much work, that's fine. But I think that maybe just a little goes a long way, especially, you're talking to a college kid or somebody out there, whoever. whoever, whatever their age is. You just put a face to that. That's my thing. It's like if I run, because I've run into a lot of people that are like the complete opposite of that, but in some way or another, I planted the seed of, you know what? Like, look at me. Do I look like a dangerous criminally? Like you've known me for a while, and I'm like, that's how we are. Like we're chill people. We're people just like you. So it's like I said, even in the smallest way, you think that you might not help, you can make a big difference. So, yeah.
Thank you, Miriam. I'm also passionate about not well, one, introducing and creating awareness about the issues, and I've been really grappling with this question for a few years now. How do we use art to, not like you were saying, not to convince someone else to think differently, um, but to really humanize our voice or perspective, and to really counter all those negative narratives that are impacting and are creating, more confusion, more racism, more misunderstanding. Again, I don't know if art can ever remove that, but I think that it is a way to chip away from racism. And I think that what you mentioned earlier is, no matter how small something, it can create an impact. Such as one thing that you included here, which was, again, this zine is not just printed, it has multiple components, which you have a know your rights, a card that you included as well. So
Mhm.
not only it's for other people who want to advocate for us and our communities, but also for communities to advocate for themselves and know their rights as well.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a huge important facet that a lot of, I want to spread is that phrase knowledge is power is not just a corny phrase. It's a fact, and it's powerful, because throughout the years, we've been removed from our indigenous knowledge, from wherever we come from, whatever, you know, um, region of Latin America we've been, we're from, like there's something that was stolen from us, that knowledge, and knowledge was passed down, like, I'm from Puebla, Mexico, and the same thing, like knowledge has always been passed down, like via verbally. Um, but at the same time, it's like they also burned our codexes and stuff. So that, when people say it's not that deep, well, actually, it really is that deep, and that's why I love spreading the knowledge that I have whenever I can, even sometimes to my own mother. Like sometimes she watches, sorry to call you out, mom. No, but it's not, it's more like she watches like she ends up getting like the AI videos or whatever. And she asked me, she's like, "Is this true?" It's like, what? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, let's look it up. Like, sometimes I don't know the whole, answer, but I'm like, let's look it up. And oh, it's not real, And the whole thing about like, oh, is Trump really, like when it was first starting, it's like, oh, is Trump really gonna be the bad guy? Like, is he really gonna do that? I'm like, let's look at history, So it's like spreading knowledge is power, because a lot of folk don't know uh what goes in and out, like in their secret meetings, or like a lot of things get passed down and we're just oblivious to it. Um, but yeah, yeah.
Absolutely, Miriam. And also, you mentioned something important about passing knowledge. And now I see some parallels between the codices that you mentioned and the zine, which is this like small format but powerful
Okay.
medium. Anything you'd like to say about that connection?
It's I'm glad you noticed it, because I feel like a lot of my influences I try to make obvious, because I am of the, spirit that, like, if you notice that my artwork seems a certain type of way, it's most likely inspired by, like, the codices, or Vincent van Gogh, or comic book artists, like, so, and I try, that's one of my next projects that I am working on, is like creating one codice for my family tree and the people I meet because I know I learned back in the day that some I guess tribes in Mexico, they some people weren't allowed to paint. They were there were special positions for people who could paint, and only the most, I guess, higher ups were able to like touch the paint. I think maybe I'm not sure, but like some women weren't allowed to paint. So it kind of, encourages me more, yes, to borrow from that like style, but also to be like, well, I have the tools now and I can paint, and while we have them, while we have freedom of speech and while we have these tools that are relatively inexpensive, even though a lot of art materials are very expensive, but you can use whatever that you have to create something. Even like organic pigments, which they did use for a lot of these codices. So, yeah.
I mean, you're about to make me cry because I was writing some notes here. No, but really, I have a piece that I made a few years back, dedicated to the people whose dreams could not be fulfilled, made on Dia de los Muertos, and it's a
I
huge
love it.
scroll that I made for an installation. And you touch a nerve here because that's something that I always think about the ancestors, people who could not go to school to receive an education because they couldn't either afford it, or they were women, or for the LGBTQ community. Now the Pride just passed, you
Yeah.
know, um, being from that community, it's always emotional to see that 100 years ago people were still, targeted and policed.
Yes.
We're still policed to this day. Um, but we are a little bit more open, and there's more acceptance and more love openly. So thank you for that, that you mentioned. It's important. So in
Yeah,
my
it's
work,
something, yeah, very close to my heart. Yeah, yeah.
and in my work as well, it's when I make this work too. Now that you're mentioning it this way, it's how it can also connect to those people in the past that I don't know, that I didn't get to, or at least I say I don't know. Maybe I do. Who knows? We can talk more about spirituality, but it's an emotional point that I wasn't expecting to have. Anything you'd like to respond?
Yeah, I definitely I love that topic in general. The ancestors topic because a lot of my awakening of my artistry and of myself was involved with the ancestors of my ancestors and loved ones who are no longer here. When I was in my early 20s, I moved to California, and that was really kind of it was a result of kind of trying to detach from my family because at the time it was very toxic. And I was still very young, and I thought I knew it all too, so I'll add that. Um, but while I was in California, to me, it seemed like a little Mexico. And as somebody undocumented, I wasn't able to travel to Mexico to actually see, how it was. And so that was kind of like a little cheat code, and I was able to see and kind of connect with my people, especially the artists that were there. They were very, very generous in introducing me to the scene and Boyle Heights and stuff like that. And I started connecting a lot with my ancestors through that. Something was pushing me to be free and to live in my truth, whatever that was, because once I started digging deeper into the layers of myself, I was like, oh, wow, I could be anything. Like, really, and so can other people. And so I reached really in the depths of me and was like, I can feel my grandmother, like my great grandmother. I could feel my great great grandmother, everybody that contributed to my cells and like myself, that spoke to me. And, I don't know them, obviously, well, maybe, they weren't perfect, but I feel like, well, I'm not perfect. And I can be somebody spreading the message for them in some type of way, whoever they were, right? Um, Especially, the ones who suffered through a lot of the messed up things that happened in Mexico. I could speak for them, and maybe like you said, those dreams that were never fulfilled for the people who had to leave their studies or had no option to study at all. It was just work, work. I carry them with me because of the traumas, the always, holding your breath and being anxious and all that stuff. Like I carry that with me too. And so in a way, art is healing as well. I'm trying to heal them like within me. So yeah, that's
Well, Miriam, I think this could be a whole series. And I say this all the time when I talk to people. Um,
yeah.
um, and you mentioned healing. And the last part of the zine that I like to highlight is the self care. So not only are you giving people tools to combat these systems that are trying to eradicate us and their communities, but you also provide on page 8 a page called Self Care. The world is not in balance, but you can be. Tell us more about why you thought it was important to not only, include the doom and gloom and how to fight it, but also more of the healing part that you mentioned.
Because I feel like that's something that I constantly have to tell myself too. So I feel like I don't also just, and then I do practice all of those. Like I throw the sink at it, essentially, because that's kind of like where we're at, but it's a must when you're I see myself sometimes as like a computer or somebody, or where it's just like you gotta shut that down sometimes, let it rest, let it, let the cells regenerate, get some good sleep, because your body is like a whole machine, right? And something that I learned about like the trauma and stuff that we carry from our ancestors and whatnot, it's like we have to heal that part of ourselves, but we also want to make sure that we heal as we go, with all the things that, because I was very, very upset during the administration coming back in again, last year. And I was like, man, I'm healing. Yeah, I'm working on healing, but now I gotta do this crap too. Like I gotta go through another new trauma, on top of other traumas and heal those. But it's like it's something that I must do, and it's important to hydrate, do the basics, because even growing up, I wasn't even told about the basics. Like I drank like soda a lot and stuff like that. Like I wasn't even taught that like you shouldn't eat like cup noodles all the time, or you shouldn't like, because yeah, it's like your body is a vessel and you must protect it and take care of it. And if you're gonna continue the fight of life and the fight of like advocating and being an artist and just being a person, you got to take care of yourself, you know? And that's something that I really love to focus on, like our community as well, because we got to fight against well, ponte las pilas, there's no such thing as depression, that type of colonialism, of our brain, that is like they put that in us so that way we could be like, working nonstop. We gotta kind of like unscrew our brains, So that's my way of letting people know and reminding myself, like, it's okay to take a breather and nap, you know? Don't feel guilty about taking a rest. And the 100% part of it is taking care of yourself is not a treat. It is a must. So, yeah.
No, thank you, Miriam, because when I was growing up, one phrase I used to hear was, I will rest when I die. So
Hmm.
rest was not part of the everyday conversation. It was just like continuously work, 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 which I understand. Many of us, many of our families, many of our parents came to this country to work.
Yeah.
But we do carry a lot of the mindsets that the Spaniards left that we still need to address.
Yes. Yeah. Very much so.
I feel
Very
like
much so.
this could be another episode as well.
Yeah. What's another story?
Another story.
Oh yeah.
So Miriam, I definitely want to move on a little bit more. And one of the reasons I wanted to do this podcast segment within this Antonio Lani's Art podcast is that I never get to hear from other Latinx, specifically Spanish-speaking bilingual artists who are also in this fight. And this fight could be anything from like creating a creative life, trying to make this world a little better through our art. Um, I want to talk more and move on um, to the business side of the art business, which is something that you were mentioning before we started the podcast episode. Um, how was your introduction to becoming a business owner who is also an artist and who does so many amazing things?
Well, uh, I was leaning already towards that path because I'm working on a graphic novel. But I was working on it while I was a full-time employee at a games company. And then a layoff happened at the beginning of Trump's presidency last year. And that was the push that I didn't want because I was gonna do it anyway, but that, unfortunately, like I had to take. And so I started vending more because I did like do art markets, but it like staggered here and there. But I started doing more markets at the state fair grounds and anywhere that would have me, honestly. And a lot of it was realizing that some of them are very like predatory in terms of like the cost of them. They range somewhere above like 150, 300, and it depends. And I say predatory because some of them don't have the numbers to show for them. And I've participated in some that it's just like, man, I feel scammed, because this is like, this is crazy to be, and somebody who is not that many resources, it wouldn't be able to participate in those. And those I feel like are the voices that really need to be pushed out. Because we can be fair, I'm not saying like, oh, I'm like, I want everything free, but like, let's be fair. Um, but there are some art markets that I participated, which have been a fair price and stuff like that. So I was pushed into that world, full time, and I don't want to glamorize it because some people have asked like, oh, I'm thinking of going up 100% full time. It's like, what do I need? And blah, blah, blah. And it's like, one, it's like you definitely need money to make money. It's like you always hear that, but it's really true. Um, you don't need a crazy fancy setup, but you do need like to be able to talk to people or whatever. And it's a lot of brain work. It's a lot of mental work and a lot of physical work. So I definitely don't want to glamorize doing art markets outside, especially. I know I mentioned earlier that, I am realizing how harsh, m- vending outside is because my mom, she's like a tamale maker and she's sold outside. And I've gone vending with her multiple times, not 100% of the times, but I've I've been with her even when I was little. There were some scary moments in there, where you just can't post up somewhere unless you have, and then you have somebody threaten to kick you out. Like that's definitely happened to me and my mom. Like they call the cops on us and stuff, and it's just like, dang, it's like, whoa, don't need to be like very. It's just this world has like a thing against small business owners. Um, and so yeah, I want to make sure that I'm always like transparent about going into this world, but I think that it's worth it. We can make this better. It's not like this is the way that it has to be either. We can make art markets better and just make them fair and uh, make sure that we think about the vendors and people like that. But yeah, it's hard work to say the least. Yeah.
So you've been in this entrepreneurship journey for about a year and a half?
Yeah, a year and a half. Yeah, yeah. And that while making art in the, to sell it, it's a tough thing. I don't think a lot of people talk about having to keep creating things and, making sure that, with that little voice, it's like, will people like it? Because I really don't like to think of it like my art when I create it. A lot of the times, like 90% of the time, it'll be, do I like it? And that's what I'm focused on. And I'm already hard on myself, so but then like the 10% of it is like, I wonder if people will like it. It's like, okay. Well, and then some of it is like, I wonder if people like it enough to buy it. You know, um, and that's always like the amazing, grateful moment where I'm like, dang, like people like it enough to buy it. That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, it's hard to kind of like balance that. And as being a small business owner, you have to do the jack of all trades, the marketing, the moving, the booking, everything, so so yeah, it's like it's crazy out there.
So I'm always fascinated with entrepreneurs, specifically artist entrepreneurs, being one myself. I like to learn from others. What are the top two things that are helping you become a stronger, more economically sustainable creative? Like, what kind of things are you learning along the way in this year and a half?
Budgeting, a lot of budgeting and a lot of studying what sells well, I guess, what people gravitate to. And not just because of the numbers, but because of the why, what's going on in people's lives right now? Why do they gravitate to this certain piece? And I guess sometimes it's like, oh, that's cool that they feel the same. If I put out a happy piece, it's like that's cool that they feel the same or that connection. That's my number one thing. If when people ask me why do you do it, it's like because I'm human and I'm an animal and I want human connection, like especially at art markets, it's like it makes that worthwhile. It's the human to human connection. You're not staring at a phone and just like being like, oh, I guess I kind of know this person. It's like, no, no. It's like you actually met this person, you have a talk, So, but yeah, it's going back to the analytical aspect of being a small business owner is you know, the budgeting and the what sells and picking certain I guess events. Being able to know where you would maybe fit in, because you're not going to fit in everywhere. And it's the acceptance of like, oh yeah, well, I guess that's just not my crowd. It's like, and not everybody's gonna like what I have to say, which is, yeah, of course. Yeah.
No, Miriam, thank you for that because one of the reasons that you mentioned that stand out to me is the studying our craft, but not
Uh-huh.
only studying the craft for us to create something that makes us feel well, but also something that will sell.
Yeah.
I did not expect that there would be a lot of work into this part of the marketing so that other people would feel enticed to clicking buy on our website
Right.
or Etsy or going to the local craft market. And when I started making my own art entrepreneurship, honestly, I'm going to be honest with you. I thought it was going to be just painting and drawing all the time, but it wasn't.
Same.
I I found that it's about 20-30%, but the remaining 70, 60, 80% is the marketing. How do we promote our work? How do we make sure that, like you were saying, that people connect to the piece? Not every print that I create sells. A few of them do. And I can talk more about the book project that I started last year. But it's like trying to find out what works and being patient.
Yes, and definitely highlighting the patience part. Uh, a lot of the time, like when I started, I I asked some questions, but I don't think I asked enough questions. And I will tell people like anytime. Ask questions. That's kind of how I got like at my old jobs, I got like better positions because I would ask people questions all the time. People that went to college like and graduated because I went to college, but I would just kind of like siphoned the knowledge from them. It's like, how do you do this? Something that wasn't like completely like I should have known that, like how to do an Excel sheet. Yeah, that's basic. But always ask questions. I would tell people, and also when I started doing my prints. I printed one image, and it was like 15 of them at FedEx, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was like printing out multiple copies of like certain images and hoping for the best, right? Which you do, and it's not an exact science, but now I know that to print at just two copies per image that you think that you like or whatever and see how well they do. They always say, like, especially at a big festival, print 2 to 5 per image and don't like put everything of your like portfolio out there. It's just like really think it through. So that's something I didn't know. So
Oh my goodness, Miriam, I had to learn that the hard way because when I was starting out with the print specifically, I was excited for all the portfolio that I have, and I was
mm,
printing left and right, but maybe just like one out of all of them sold, and I had them just laying, gathering dust, and
yeah.
nothing sold. So I ended up, keeping them and not taking them out. And I don't want my art to just be gathering dust.
Right, and especially the money that you put into it and stuff like that. I'm like, man, now I gotta use this for paper mache. I'm just like using my hey to create other art. Yeah.
That is
But
that is that is funny.
yeah.
And Miriam, one of the things I really like about your work is that the past few months, we're in July 1st, 2026. I've seen that you are so active in the market scene, selling your work, and oftentimes they have like 4 or 5 events per week. And every time, I see your post, I'm always celebrating. Um, for those of us who are not as familiar with markets, do you think that they are like a viable way of making a sustainable creative life?
I will say yes. Yes, yes, yes. You just kind of have to plan accordingly. Usually the spring and fall are the best seasons because people tend to go out and it's better weather for both the vendor and the community member. But I will say that I've gotten like I'm gonna say like 98% of my income from markets. Um, because and followers too. I got like more followers from markets because they're actually real. And you can not I'm not pushy. They ask, hey, how can I follow your thingy? And usually they're the ones more likely to convert to full-time collectors because you get to have a conversation with them. You like each other's vibes and they connect through your work. So it's a win-win for both. You just out there making friends. So I definitely see so much value in being out there in the markets. Definitely a lot more than online now. Maybe it used to be 50-50 or much better back in the day, but right now, at least social media and like online sales, I heard are kind of like, unless you're a bigger brand, maybe. I mean, I don't know crazy amount of the subject, but for me personally, I make maybe one Etsy sale every, I don't know, like, and I have to push my own traffic too. That's the thing about it. They say that they advertise it, but you have to push it. And you're already paying for a listing. So it's like, yeah, so markets are the way to go. Yeah.
Well, there you go, Miriam. Thank you, because that's my misconception. Because when I started, markets were not working for me, but it doesn't mean that they won't ever work. Now, since
Oh, yeah.
publishing my picture book, people are liking it more and connecting. So it
Yeah,
wasn't like the
yeah.
market, it was more like
Mhm.
what I was producing and how people were connecting to it.
Yeah, I will say that's also what I mentioned earlier is like not every crowd's going to be your crowd. And I pick my markets now a little more uh, than I did before. Before I was just accepting any markets and any space. I remember I did a couple of these newer markets in a certain town that I don't want to say their town name, but they were very not my crowd. They had like a lot of like other type of like art, like very basic type of artwork, I would say, sorry. And a lot of people kept skipping over me. Um, and it was just evident that like they were just not my crowd. So I was like, well, I'm just not gonna do this for now. Maybe I'll revisit and not totally give up, but for now it's not worth my time going over there. And I done another event that I didn't like, that I like to warn others about, making sure that you're not decoration for the event. And I say that because I got invited to a an event at a car parts uh car parts headquarters for a Hispanic heritage event, and they're paying everybody else to be there but the artist. And I just they're like, well, you'll get foot traffic. The foot traffic was their employees, you know. So, I that was when I first started doing the markets, and I didn't know any better, but now I know that never to really like accept that unless I'm gonna be paid for my time to drive there and my time to be there. Because I was just like glorified decoration for the event. So I won't do those. And shame on those people that did that, because it's just like you don't respect artists enough to kind of see that we put our time and effort into this. And I don't know, that was just weird. But yeah, I'm a little more picky with my markets. Especially Hispanic heritage events, or, like rock things or goth things, like anything that has to do with like my niche. Like I'm very, like I think I'll do it well over there. And so I won't do markets that are like above like $80 unless they're like a juried thing in a very well-known market that is like say like Artsplosion. Like that's one of the like Triangle's most well-known art festivals, and I think that's a really good crowd because they have different types of artists. And I think that as long as you present, like, yeah, like a good amount of your work, and you come prepared, like you'll do well. People will see your truth, so yeah, being a little more picky.
Being picky, being intentional about who your audience is as well helps.
Yes, yes, yes,
Okay,
for sure.
awesome. So, Miriam, we're about to finish and conclude this episode. Anything you'd like to share that we didn't have a chance to talk about?
Well, there's a lot that we didn't have a chance to talk about now, but no, I like the that we highlighted the zine, and it's one of my, I gotta mention, one of my newest kind of like um uh I guess rabbit holes that I've gone into in like my mediums, because I used to do them a lot when I was a kid, and me and my cousin used to like collaborate in creating some like Winnie the Pooh like fan fiction back then and stuff, and some zines. But now I've returned to them, and they're sort of like a journal, and everything in it is made by me. Um uh Even the stickers and stuff like that. So I just kind of want to encourage people to just like get into zining, and because unfortunately it's become kind of like well, I'll say that it's good for putting free speech in it, and while we have it. It's good to just take advantage of that. And it's like it's like you'll become an automatic published author when you do, because it takes the red tape out of publishing, and it's just you know, putting it out there. No waiting for anybody to do it, you just do it. So, yeah.
Absolutely. The freedom of the zine, and also wanted to highlight a few of the freebies that I got, including this La Luna Loteria
Yeah,
card.
I felt like it was you. I don't know why. I was like, I like
Thank
it.
you. Thank you. No, when I saw it, I said, Miriam, this is amazing. I love it more.
Yeah. I'm like, I just want to include like any, like something that
Yeah,
I feel like would connect to you, or and something Mexican,
absolutely.
yeah.
Keeping the Latinidad alive. And then another thing um that you have in the back is like a little sticker pocket, which is so cute.
Yes, I like making the little envelopes and stuff like
uh,
that. I don't know. I like to be extra. Like, how artists we are very like,
yeah,
detail oriented most of the time, and it's just like I
yeah,
like the little secret thingy.
yeah.
Yeah.
You make it fun because when I got to the end, I got a little sticker freebie,
Yeah.
and it's always fun and a surprise to see. Oh, look, and then you
Yeah.
say, "Whoa, you're still here? Good. Here's a freebie for making it this far."
Yeah, I included that sticker because it's called Still I Rise, and she's like laughing, and she's like, because she's laughing in the face of people who thought that she couldn't uh be herself and just be, just rise, so she's just like, like sometimes like I do things in spite of, in spite of people telling me that what I can and can't do, so that's kind of my little
I
homage to
love it. I love it. The Still I
yeah.
Rise piece
And
definitely.
zines, yeah, and zines you can do anything with them. You can make a zine from old leaves. You can bind them and make them into covers. You can take like I don't know, a bag, like a paper bag, and make that into the cover. Like, it's like the sky's the limit. Like, I saw a zine that was made out of like a little thing that stuck out of a tea bag or whatever. You could just do anything. So, yeah.
It keeps you resourceful and creative, right?
It does, it does. I'm like, and I'm of that mindset. I guess I'm like, I don't like throwing things away too. I think that's something that I inherited from my mom, or from like, making sure that like we're not wasteful, you know? And I'm just like, ooh, this can be something, this has potential. And it's like, my husband's like, why are you keeping all these jars under the sink? Like, they've been there forever. I'm like, one day, okay? One day I'll have that big idea. I'm like, I just want it there, it has potential. So, yeah.
We don't know the potential yet, but it's still there.
Is
It will
there,
come.
is there. So I'm gonna work out.
Awesome, Medium. So, how can people find you? Give us your social handles, your website, other
You're like
services
your
that you may
social
offer.
security. No, just kidding. No.
Your social handles.
Okay. My social on Instagram is at Kid Ximil. So that's KIDXIMIL. And you can find me on Facebook at Miriam Ximil Art. And I have a website, but that's very long too. But it's on Wix. I'm working on getting a domain, an actual domain. But yeah, that's where you can find me for now.
You mentioned an Etsy shop earlier, right?
Oh yeah, and Etsy, yeah, under Miriam Ximil Art. Yes.
Beautiful. Well, Medium, it's been a pleasure. I think that we need to extend this further,
Oh
um,
yes.
because some of the few comments that you mentioned earlier, we could have more follow-ups. But
I'd
just to
love to.
thank you. And I know this is not going to be the last time that we'll collaborate because we have another upcoming um, project for fall 2026 that we
Yes.
will be revealing very soon, but not right now, not today. But I just want to thank you, Medium, for your brilliance and making sure that, we can talk about the things that are hurting us and also how to be better. how to be better by coming
Yes.
back to ourselves. One of the main things that really stood out to me is becoming back to like ourselves, becoming returning to our childhood, like when you were doing
Yes.
your zine, fan fiction, Winnie the Pooh work. I
Mm-hmm.
thought it was so cute. And returning to who we are and to ancestors, to our ancestral lineage as well. So everyone, you learn more about Miriam, follow her on social media and definitely support her work. There you'll see all the markets that she mentions, and it's always fun to see her. I remember the last time I saw you, one of the last or second to last was it in Raleigh in a big market. So
Yes,
Miriam,
thank
muchísimas
you. Thank you for
gracias.
having me, Antonio. Appreciate
Of
you.
course.